Hello, I'm creating this video in conjunction with the June 10th presentation that I'm doing on using online tools for giving students feedback. And I want to show in this video, the purpose is to show you how to use and create a rubric if you're going to be using Speedgrader through Canvas. So there's a couple different places where you can access and create a rubric. I'm going to show you the first way, which is after you've created the assignment. There also is a rubric tab and you can create it there as well. I'll show you that at the end. But for this you would, and I'm not going to create the entire rubric because that would be pretty boring to watch me do it, but I'm just going to show you how to get started and use some of the tools. In the interest of full disclosure, I am an English teacher, but in the spirit of trying to be more inclusive and not just make everything about English essays, I want to show you how you could use this for maybe a lab report if you were going to do a rubric on a lab report. I know that there's probably never ever in the history of mankind going to be an assignment called Cell's Lab Report, but that was in my little English teacher brain a good title for this mock assignment. So let's say this is in fact a wonderful, wonderful lab report that we're going to ask the students to write on cells and that we want to attach a rubric to it. So let me just click on plus rubric. So if you didn't see that, there's a little plus rubric. Now, let's say I already had a rubric, then I would just find it here. That's where you'll see these, that I'm definitely an English teacher. Mine are all essay rubrics. But let's say, for example, I don't have a rubric that I need for this particular essay that I'm writing. So you have this to start with. And the first thing you might want to do is to title it. If you're like me, you probably want to make a rubric that's going to fit for more than one assignment, so you don't have to create like a million rubrics. And if you're also like me, this is just not going to be enough. Like we only have like just a few things there, but you can add to it. So let's say I'm going to talk about, like, I actually found a rubric online for a lab report. So to look at what kinds of things you might grade for. And some of the categories on this one that I found online is organization, title to method, data observations and calculations, conclusion, and neatness and overall impression. So that's what this was in something that I found online. So you probably have your own, but if you're like me, sometimes you look online and you kind of mix it up with what your own thoughts are. But let's just say, for example, I'm going to show you just a little bit of how to do this. So you want to add the criteria here. So you get one to start with. You're going to need more than one. So the description of the criteria, this one might, if I were to use this one online, organization. Now, if I had a description for that, I would add it. Like you could say the extent to which the student keeps the ideas organized, or however you'd want to say it. I'm just going to leave that blank for now, but that's what you could give more of a description there. So then you click on update criteria. So I have this now says organization. And here it only has two categories. It's either 5 or 0. And most of us aren't that absolute in our grading. We want to have some shades of gray, and full marks may not be what you want to call it. So you can change the number of points. I'm just going to leave it at 5 for now. I can always go back and change that later. And so I'm going to call this is going to be my top one. So I might call this master level. And then that's where you probably do want to have a description there. So for organization, a really good one is contains all necessary headings in correct order, and headings are clearly distinct from statements. So I'm not going to type that whole thing because I want to keep the video pretty short, but contains all, and I would all necessary headings, ... And then whatever else I consider to be a well-organized lab report. And let's just say, for the sake of argument, that I typed everything that I wanted to type there. Now, again, because most people don't want to have either 5 points or 0 points, we want a little bit in between there. I'm going to use this plus sign, and I'm going to give myself another category, and I'm going to make that category called, it's not masters, but maybe it's proficient. It's good, could be better. And then there I might put organized with considerable competence. That's what it says in this online rubric. Some of you may be like, that's not great, but that's what I found online, so we're going to go with that. Okay, so then I would add that. And then, so maybe I want one that's more just like, I'm going to make that worth 3 points, and that one's going to be approaching. And you, of course, will use your own designation. Maybe you want to use, you don't want to use master's level. Maybe you want to use accomplished. Maybe you want to use something different. But you would, for approaching, I might put some error made in placement of headings or statements. Okay, and then you might have one more that's like emergent. And then you would type the description there. I'm just going to leave that blank for now. So then you would have like all your different things, what you have. You don't have to have one that's worth 0 points. You don't have to use the one that's worth 0 points. I think it will keep itself there, but you can change this one. If you want the lowest to be worth 1 and not 0, of course you can do that, and you can say not yet. You can give it 0 if you want. That's going to be entirely up to you. But then, of course, you would probably want to add a description there, which is something that I didn't do in the interest of time. Now, of course, most of us have more than one row in our rubric. We have maybe 4 or 5 rows. So then the same way we use the pluses here to add the different rating levels, we can add another criterion here. And that one, let me scroll down a little bit. That one I'm going to click on a duplicate, I guess, if you wanted to duplicate it for some reason. I don't. I want a new one. And this was going to be title 2. Oops. Title 2 method. And that would be another one that I found on this online rubric that is for grading lab reports. And so I would create that, and I would go back and do the same thing that I did before. I would add the different levels. I would assume that you probably keep the same levels. If these were the levels that you were happy with for your organization, you probably have something pretty similar for title to method, data observations and calculations, and so forth. And then these can be, as you can see, this can be changed. So if I wanted to do 10, you'll see that changes the last to 10, and it did adjust the points for me, which was kind of nice. If I'm like, oh, I forgot, I wanted to make that worth, I wanted to make this one worth 20, I forgot. Notice how it will adjust it for you. If you made this one worth 20, it will also adjust it for you. So it kind of adjusts down, and then you can adjust it further if you want to. And you can see how many points it's worth. I mean, a lot of us make things out of 100. Of course, you don't have to, but that is how you create a rubric on Speedgrader. It is front loading, right? It's something that you have to do. It takes a few moments. That said, once you've done it, Canvas keeps it and you can use it again. So this is if you're using Speedgrader. If you're using Turnitin, there's a different method for making a rubric, and I actually made a different video about that. But this is the one I wanted to make for Speedgrader. If you prefer to use Speedgrader, if that works better for what you're doing with your class. As you can see, there's different other options that you can look into. Use this rubric for assignment grading. I'll write free-form comments. If you write the free-form comments, I think the criteria disappears. I think I did that one time, and then those little levels disappeared. So I typically, rather than that, I do keep my levels, and then if I want to reward the students, or if I want to comment more in a more free-form way, to use the term from Turnitin, I'll do that in the overall text comments that you have on Speedgrader. But once you're done, what you always want to make sure that you do is you click on Create Rubric to save all your hard work and to save all your changes. And you can always go back and, like, if you're just like, I don't have time to finish it now, I got to get going, then all you'd have to do is come back to it and change it. Okay, but just make sure you save what you've done, because there's nothing more frustrating than putting in a lot of time and then realizing it's not done. So that's how you create a rubric using Speedgrader on Canvas. That way, and again, once you make it one, there's that little investment of time in the beginning, but then you'll have it for all assignments. If you can kind of create a rubric that covers more than one assignment, then maybe an assignment you give again and again, then you're going to be in good shape. Yes, thank you very much for your attention. And my name is Paula Della. I'm a teacher at Thomas Jefferson High School, and also I'm a member of the adjunct faculty at San Antonio College. and I will put my email address in the description below. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day.